Mr. Chair, we do not have a quorum at this point.
Committee meeting. This meeting will be streamed and recorded online, and the public can comment via email at public.info@metc.state.mn.us. And with that, I will hand it over to staff to take the roll call.
Mr. Chair, we do need to wait a moment. We do not yet have a quorum.
Okay.
Jed, I'm also just seeing a gray box for your screen. It could be a me thing, but
there it goes. Oh,
no, there's the agenda.
yeah. I was seeing the gray box before as well. Actually, can you move? It's like when you like put the cursor over areas, like it turned ungray. Oh, never mind. Now it's turning gray again. Never mind. I don't know what's going on with it.
When I go to unmute.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Yep. Grade back up. That makes sense.
Let me know, Jed, when we've got a quorum, please.
Mr. Chair, quorum's present.
Thank you, Jed. Again, I'm Scott Merrick. Will be your new chair for TAC planning, with Emily moving on Jorgensen to another opportunity at Washington County. Angie Stinson will be our vice chair. This meeting is being streamed online on the Met Council website, and public can provide comments at public.info@metc.state.mn.us. This is the August 11th, 2022 Met Council TAC Planning Committee, and I'll hand over to Jed for a roll call, please.
Andrew Emanuele. Angie Stenson.
Jack Johansson here as alternate for Angie Stenson.
Ben Picone. Bill Dermody.
Here.
Bridget Reef. Charlie Howley. Dave Burns.
Yeah, here.
Elaine Katsukos.
Present.
Gina Mitico.
Here.
Innocent Ao. Jack Forsland. Jason Gottfried.
Here.
Jim Vole. Lissa Leitner.
Yep, here.
Mark Culver.
Here.
Michael Corbett.
Here.
Michael Larson.
Here.
Nathan Abney.
Here.
Scott Merrick.
Here.
And Steve Mahold. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jed. The second item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any objections or changes to the agenda as posted on the website? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as proposed. And the next item, number 3, is approval of the April 14th, 2022 TAC planning minutes. We'll entertain a motion in a second, and then if there are any questions or comments, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
This is David Burns. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Jason Gottfried, second.
Thank you, Jason. Any discussion or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, Jed, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Jack Johansson,
Yay.
Ben Picone, Bill Dermody,
Yes.
Bridget Reef, Charlie Howley, Dave Burns,
Aye.
Elaine Katsukos,
Aye.
Gina Medico,
Aye.
Innocent Ao, Jack Forsland, Jason Gottfried,
Aye.
Jim Vole, Lissa Leitner,
Aye.
Mark Culver,
Aye.
Michael Corbett, Michael Corbett,
Aye, sorry about that. Aye.
Michael Larson,
Aye.
Nathan Abney,
Aye.
Scott Merrick,
Aye.
Steve Mahold. All right, the motion carries.
All right, motion carries. The April 14th, 2022 TAC minutes are approved. Moving on to next item, public comment on committee business. Again, this is a publicly streamed meeting on the Met Council website. Jed, were there any members of the public that registered to comment at this meeting?
We did not receive any comments or any requests to make comments at this meeting.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to new business. Item 2022-31, the 2023 Unified Planning Work Program. David and Amy have a presentation for us, and this is a roll call vote.
Great. Yeah, this is Dave Burns. Jed, if you want to pop up the PowerPoint, that'd be great. Okay, might seem early in the year, but it's not. 2023 is fast around the corner here, and we are hard at work at our Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP. Next slide, please. So on this presentation, I'm just going to give a basic, real quick overview of the UPWP, talk a little bit about the content, just a few, outline a couple of planning studies that began in 2022 or will begin in 2022, and then talk about planning studies that will begin in 2023, just real briefly, and then provide the committee with a draft UPWP budget and a couple of related discussion items. So, oh, sorry. I was on the wrong slide there. So yeah, in terms of the purpose of the UPWP, it's actually required by federal laws for all MPOs. Really, it stems from two different areas. The goals and objectives in our 2040 transportation policy plan, and what comes up over the course of the year or multiple years from our local stakeholders. So it addresses these kind of pressing issues and concerns expressed by our planning partners, such as TAC planning. So it serves to outline in detail all of the work activities that we will perform in 2023. And it describes our transportation planning activities, studies, and the budgets associated with those activities and studies. And in reality, it's actually an application we must submit in order to receive these federal transportation planning funds. It's required by FHWA and FTA. And once it is approved, it's submitted to MnDOT and subsequently FHWA and FTA for their review and approval. Next slide, please. Okay, so the way that we handle the UPWP activities here at the council is we have basically 6 major categories, as you can see kind of on the left-hand side of the screen. And each category does include a calculation of both the total staff time and the associated salary cost, the consultant time and cost, the estimated expenditures, and the total cost for projects within that category. You can kind of see an example of that with activity A there on the right-hand side. So some tasks, like activity A, are part of the planning process and ongoing and repeated every year. Others change based upon the regional needs and priorities as outlined by the TPP and which I described previously. So just a quick note here, in 2023, our total consulting budget does exceed $2 million, which is, I believe, a record as far as I know. It must be a record. So a significant budget activity in 2023 will be going to consultant-led studies or consultant studies. Next slide, please, Jed. So we have kind of outlined in previous meetings of TAC planning some of these planning studies, but I just want to talk about a couple here. The first one is the TPP goals review, engagement, and update study, and I think it's like the 5th bullet there on your left. It's an anticipated October start date. So just wanted to note here that this is really going to be an important study to assist in helping for the upcoming TPP update, which is due in 2024. We're going to be assessing the progress of the transportation vision, goals, and objectives that we have expressed in our TPP, and really facilitate a regional discussion on revising the goals and objectives as needed and as articulated by our regional partners. And we're also, one major piece of this will be reassessing the approach to congestion mitigation and mobility given changing travel behaviors brought about not only by the COVID-19 pandemic, but other factors as well. Right below that, and with the regional transportation and climate change multimodal measures, bottom bullet on the left side is another one that is anticipated to start within a few months here, September or October. This will help provide a more detailed approach on evaluating the emissions benefits and impacts on our overall plans, programs, and in particular, individual projects. So this will help to better weigh emissions trade-offs of investment and planning decisions. And hopefully the ultimate goal here is the result will be both a guide for how to better calculate emission project benefits within the region and identify projects with the greatest positive and negative effects. Go ahead to the next slide, Jed. And we did talk about these probably in April or so, but we do have quite a few less studies than what we had in 2022 because we have so many in 2022 that are carrying over to 2023. 4 new ones though, and I'll outline the first 2 there. The regional solicitation evaluation. So this is like our once in a decade major look and examination of the regional solicitation process. The main purpose is to tie project selection more closely to the Regional Development Guide, or THRIVE, and the 2050 Transportation Policy Plan, which are both currently being updated concurrently. And this will really help ensure that the region's transportation goals and objectives, as expressed both in the Regional Development Guide as well as the TPP, are being incorporated into the project selection in the regional solicitation. So tying everything together. Some tasks associated with this project will be an assessment, assessing the outcomes of projects selected over the past decade, and evaluating the entire regional solicitation program process, including the application categories, selection criteria, and even the measures for selecting projects. So a deep dive, deep examination into the regional solicitation. Next is the Metropolitan Highway Systems, harms, impacts, and mitigations priority study. So the purpose of this is kind of an exploration of how freeways have had a significant burden on communities and persons in the path of and living nearby freeways, with an emphasis on those especially impacted, including BIPOC and low-income populations. So this study will identify the long-term and the continuing harms and impacts of highways on adjacent communities and propose mitigation investments and funding for eventual inclusion into the regional plan and the regional planning process. So tasks associated with this study include the actual identification of the communities near the highway system that have and continue to be most harmed and impacted by the highway system, a development of criteria and measures for quantifying the harms and impacts, and identifying investments that could help mitigate the past harms and continued harms and impacts to these affected communities. Next slide, please, Jed. So next we have the draft UPWP budget. So a couple things have happened. Well, first I'll go over that first column, staff weeks. That's number of staff weeks by task, and the associated salary cost. The consultant cost, or how many studies we have in each of those tasks that we'll utilize consultants for, and then overhead and expenses, which we have to pay basically to do business here at the MPO. So the total cost right now, the asterisk next to it, is about 6.4 million, which is an increase in our federal allotment, and this is due to increased funds from the new transportation bill, IIJA. And just a couple of notes. This budget assumes new positions, of which there's 3 or 4. I'll have Amy comment on that if she's here. I think she is. But I wanted to note here that what's one issue that we're running into is the fact that our overhead rate, which makes a significant impact on the budget, was down by a significant margin from last year, and it fluctuates greatly year to year. I remember 2 years ago it was around 160%, and then last year it was 80 something percent, and this year it's only 34%. So since we're spending a lot less on overhead and expenses, that really does free up more of the budget to go to pay for staff and their salaries, as well as consultant projects. Next slide there, Jed. So because of that really low overhead rate. The available federal funds we have actually total 5.491 million, which would allow for a total budget of 6.8 million, as opposed to the 6.3 that we currently have allocated. So in essence, we have roughly $478,000 remaining to allocate, and that does include the federal funds and the required 20% local match. So we do have some options here, and we would like to hear your input as time allows on how to potentially use these funds. We could have additional planning studies or council staff activities and hours, or we are exploring talking to both MnDOT and FHWA on potentially sort of carrying those funds over to 2023, kind of without the penalty that would normally be associated with that. And that's still TBD whether that can be done. So there could be additional activities prior to the final adoption. That the final adoption is going to occur in early October. What we have here is a draft UPWP, but just wanted to note that some things could change because of that excess in funds. And with that, that's the presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions, or if you all have any ideas on potentially what we could explore doing with those funds, this would be a great group to kind of discuss that.
Thank you, David, for the nice presentation. And so, yeah, again, this is sort of setting the blueprint or the plan for staff and the work activities that they will undertake next year to carry forward our MPO designation and keep the federal funds flowing into our region. So it's an important item to be considering. Does anybody have any questions or comments or suggestions for staff on the 2023 UPWP? Okay, I did have one question, maybe just to throw out there to get things going. I'm not sure if this is worthy of additional study or if it's already being considered, but with the COVID situation going on, there has been a little bit of flux going on with our transit system and reduced ridership, and just wondering, we're starting to slowly come out of that, it looks like, but are staff monitoring that in some way, or is that part of some of the existing studies, or can you give us a little bit of a feel for how that's being monitored?
Yeah, that is being monitored actually quite closely, and part of that is a transit onboard survey. I can't speak in great detail on that particular project. That's actually not funded by a CPG, but by our a different grant. But I do see Jonathan on here. Jonathan, did you want to comment on that at all?
Could you repeat the question?
Just wondering about how the reduced transit ridership is being monitored by staff.
So staff is monitoring ridership data as well as traffic data, and we're continuing to deploy surveys. We're deploying a onboard survey this year as we speak, which will have new data on overall travel behavior patterns and transit patterns that we'll have available in the spring.
All right, thank you for that, Jonathan. And again, just To reiterate, this is the 2023 Unified Planning Work Program. Staff are looking for a roll call vote on this, and what is the suggested action, David?
Sorry, yeah, the suggested action is to recommend approval of the 2023 Unified Planning Work Program, but it looks like Gina has a question.
Okay, go ahead, Gina.
Yeah, thanks, Chair and Dave. Scott, your question just got me to maybe thinking about other things that I think would be interesting interesting to explore, and maybe it's part of the TPP, but in the way that the pandemic has changed bicycle commuting patterns as well. I think when the RBTN was established, several years ago, that was very much based on getting people to job centers in the region. I would be curious to know just sort of if that is still the major needs today with where people are working and how people are working. Especially as transit routes have in some places reduced service, if there are people more making local trips, to replace, maybe some local trips that are less available on transit now, or just a lot of other factors. I would just be curious if that could be rolled into some type of post-pandemic analysis of travel patterns, unless it's already being done.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and thinking about it, like with the advent of electronic assisted or battery assisted, can't think of the term right now. Bicycles, yeah, I think it is kind of a game changer. And yeah, Jed, looks like you had something to say on that one.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to read in for folks on the stream that Michael Corbett commented in the chat that he believes another round of Metro Transit service changes take place August 20th, partly in response to recent trends.
Thank you, Jed.
But yeah, just to follow up on Gina's suggestion, I think that's a great suggestion and something we could certainly talk about as we move forward in the process of getting this UPWP approved.
Yeah, thank you, Gina, for that comment. Does anybody else have any comments or suggestions on the 2023 UPWP? If there are not any, we are a little pressed for time with the TPP technical work group starting in about 5 minutes. I don't mean to rush everybody, but I guess I'll just open it up one more time if there's any questions or comments for staff on this item. Hearing none, I guess I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the 2023 Unified Planning Work Program to be forwarded on through the Met Council approval process.
Lissa will make the motion.
Motion, Dermody.
Lissa moves and Bill Dermody seconds, I believe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Jed, will you take the roll call, please?
Johansson.
Aye.
Picone.
Aye.
Dermody.
Aye.
Reith. Howley. Burns.
Aye.
Katsukos.
Aye.
Medico.
Aye.
Gottfried.
Aye.
Ao. Forsland. Vol. Leitner.
Aye.
Culver.
Aye.
Corbett. Michael Corbett. Larson.
Aye.
Abney.
Aye.
Merrick.
Aye.
That is 11 yeas and no nays.
Okay, thank you, Jed. So the 2022-31 agenda item approving the 2023 Unified Planning Work Program is approved and will be forwarded on through the Met Council process. The next agenda item is other business. Does anybody have any other business to share with the group? Hearing none, I will adjourn the meeting at 1:28 and look forward to seeing many of you in a few minutes. Thank you.